Charles Long, Chris Martinson, Michael Schaaf,
Here.
Priscilla Manuelito,
Present.
Kevin Mitchell.
Here.
We do have a quorum. Kevin, would you lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the sea symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Since we have no secretary for the meeting tonight, I would like to appoint Priscilla Manuelito as the acting secretary. Item number 2, approval of agenda. Do I hear any?
Sir, I'll go ahead and motion to approve the agenda this evening.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Roll call.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Miss Manuelito,
Yes.
Mr. Schaaf.
Yes. Okay, recognitions.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, and audience members, this is an exciting time of the year, not because of Halloween this week, but because we have the opportunity to recognize students. Every time this part of the year, we recognize students and their achievements on last spring's state exam. And so you'll see many students in the audience today from the northern part of the county who are here today to receive a Board Scholar Award from the district to recognize their achievements because they worked pretty hard in order to get that kind of a score. It's not an easy exam to get an advanced score on a test. I want to emphasize how difficult that is. This is not an easy exam, not easy like the ones we used to take back in the day. It's a difficult, and they worked hard, and we want to appreciate them and thank them for their hard work at their individual schools and their individual classes. And also want to thank their teachers who work hard to teach them, and the staff of those schools who work to help the educational system in their area. And also I want to make sure that we thank the parents who support students, who get them to school on time, who support their studies at home, and who raise fine young men and women. And so we were going to start by having all the board members come up to the front, if you would. If there's anything I missed, Dr. Ryan, I believe Dr. Ryan's going to be doing the presentation of the awards. She'll hand me the award, we'll call the student's name out, and then we'll have the students come up and shake hands. And then afterwards, we want to parents are welcome to take pictures throughout the whole entire time, but at the end, we want all the parents and students to stay so the students can come up and be a part of one grand final picture. Put it on Facebook and Instagram tonight. So, all right, Dr. Ryan.
Okay, we'd like to recognize these students who have exceeded expectations on the 2018-2019 English Language Arts assessment. We have Brooke Badoni, currently attending Tohatchi Middle School. We have Destiny Begay, currently attending Crown Point Elementary. We have Langam Bitsoy, currently attending McKinley Academy, but homeschool is Tohatchi High. We have Sonia Charleston, attending Tohatchi Middle School. We have Alyssa Livingston, attending Crown Point High. Bryce Miller, Tohatchi Elementary. We have Samantha Mitchell attending Chi Dodge Elementary. Oops, it's okay. We'll do Samantha first. I got my letters mixed up, sorry. I mixed up my letters. Now we have Amy Mitchell, Tohatchi High. Omida Ramoni, Crown Point Elementary. Please, yeah, if I need to fix it. Olamide Ramoni. Leah Robinson, Tohatchi Middle School. Shantae Scott, Tohatchi High. Darian Sosi, Tohatchi High. Micah Sosi, Navajo Pine High. And Callista Vicente Bradley, Crown Point High. And these students obtained exceeded expectations on the 2018-19 math assessment. We have Aiden Benali at Chi Dodge Elementary. And Angelo Rios, Tohatchi Elementary.
Motion to approve?
So moved?
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Miss Manuelito,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw.
Yes. Okay, down to item number 4, approval of consent agenda items 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D, 4E.
Sir, I have a couple of questions that, on the budget. My first question is, to this point, for August, September, October, and we're beginning going into November, I just wanted to know what the percentage of the budget has been spent. And if it doesn't have to be tonight, but maybe in a future report we could get that. I would appreciate that. But the other question I had was under Title I, professional development. There's an amount of $10,675. It says Tohatchi High transfer of funds for professional development for teachers, and I just wanted to know what this professional development was, sir.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Mangalito, I'll have Giovanna come up and talk a little bit more in detail about the first question that you had, and also the second. I think we have enough people here to answer what the funds were for Tohatchi High School. But I'll speak a little bit about the budget. This year, I think as far back as we can remember, some of the employees here in the room have been here longer than I have. But we are further along with spending the budget than we've ever been in the at least recent history. As you know, the spending of the budget and making sure those dollars are in the classroom as soon as possible during the school year is one of the board's objectives, and so we are moving very quickly in that direction. We are doing our best to try to hold people accountable to make sure those funds are expended. We even had administrators in today having those conversations because we didn't feel comfortable with the level of spending that was taking place in their schools. So we do have some goals in that area, and I'll let Ms. Hanks, Assistant Superintendent for Business Services, talk a little bit more about that, and we'll also touch on your second question for the Title I funds.
Mr. Schaaf, members of the board, Superintendent Hyatt, members of the audience. Currently, as of today, we sit at unexpended dollars of 29.34%, which means we've obligated and expended at least over 71% of our funds, which is phenomenal for us. I will say that that's not as high as I would like, and it is because we are still getting allocations in. You may notice even today we have 4 additional appropriations from the Public Education Department. So as soon as we get those in, we have a very detailed plan of action as to how those funds will be expended. Additionally, we do know that there will be some resources spent during the spring. We're just getting into basketball and then also our spring sports. Those funds are not currently encumbered because those are done on a basis of the season. So as soon as those seasons begin occurring, you're going to see those funds being obligated as well. We've also been running a very successful after-school program because that is through non-contract pay, not through a contract with staff members. Those funds are also not encumbered. So while you may see some funds still not encumbered, we are actively tracking how funds are being expended and when they're being expended. If you talk to any principal or any program manager, they will tell you that we did move to a new form of budgeting 2 years ago, and it's been even further implemented in this school year, and that is performance-based budgeting. And so what we actually do is we want people to look and see where they need funds, when they're going to spend them, what they're going to spend them on, and then because we have benchmarks, we can go back and check with people to see where we are on spending. And as Mr. Hyatt alluded to a moment ago, we are having those conversations to make sure that the things that are supposed to be getting done are getting done. If there's roadblocks, we're determining how to fix those roadblocks and be sure the funds are getting in the classroom. But we are hoping to have by December 31st, I would love to be able to tell you that pretty much 90% of our money is gone. I would love to be able to tell you that. Now, some of it is dependent on when we get awards, unfortunately, but as soon as we get those awards, we try to get them in front of the board and get them spent.
Okay. Thank you.
On the second item of inquiry, so there is $10,000 that's being moved at Tohatchi High School. It does appear that those funds are being placed into a system called Kickboard, and that is for positive behavior support intervention. That's in alignment with the district goals of developing the whole child and making sure professional development is happening. I do notice that Miss Allison is in the audience, so if there's anything else she would like to add, I would be happy to have that. But that was the information that she provided with the transfer, and it's fully allowable in the fund that she's requested.
So Mrs. Hanks, with that intervention that is being implemented here, has it been implemented at any other school, or is this the first one?
I believe it's actually been implemented at several schools. I do see Miss Dr. White shaking her head, and she, of course, knows a lot more about the positive behavior support initiative that we have going on in the district. I know that our middle schools have implemented an item, and I know that our high schools are also working on those items.
Thank you.
If I can add just a little bit, it's all middle schools in the entire school district.
Oh, okay.
We had done some training last year for all schools, but we felt that we could do a better job by targeting the highest need area, which is middle school students, and then expanding from there. And so we actually got professional services to conduct these trainings so that we're doing an even better job.
and it does appear that Tohatchi High School is choosing an early adoption at the high school level. Thank you.
Mr. Shaw, I would also like to, for our Native American, the item under consent item agenda B, I would like to hear a little bit more about that and what kind of elementary learning opportunities for elementary Native American English speakers.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Mangalito, I'll have Carmen Moffett come up and talk a little bit about the dissertation that she's a part of. She's asking permission.
Good evening, Mr. Schaaf, members of the board, and Mr. Hyatt, and community members and parents and staff. My name is Carmen Moffett, and my proposal for my dissertation, I'm a doctoral candidate at New Mexico State University. And as you can see on the agenda, this is the title of my dissertation, which has been officially accepted by the university. And this study is looking into identifying educational leadership, mainly school principal practices that support academic achievement and the support of maintaining Native American heritage languages. This specific school for this study was selected due to its significant academic growth within the last 3 years between 2015-16 through 2017-18. In addition to that, this particular school has over 80% Native American student enrollment, and over 50% of the students are identified as English learners. This is Arema Elementary.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank
Chair,
you.
members of the board, we already reviewed this as an administration and support the efforts of this dissertation and this work done in our school, so it comes with our recommendations.
Any other questions?
No.
All right, thank you.
With that, sir, I would like to motion to approve the consent item agendas.
Do I hear a second?
Mr. Mitchell? Ms. Manuelito?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes. Then we'll move down to item number 5, study circle. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes each for your comments. The first one is Rebecca Nez.
Good morning, members of the board. Good evening, members of the board, family members, students that are here. My name is Rebecca Nez. As most of you know, I come to you as a parent. Last time I addressed the board, it wasn't taken as a parent. I was told it was for different political reasons, which is incorrect. Back in September, an event happened here at the high school that was very traumatic to our students. We voiced our concerns and nothing has been done from the school board. No letter stating a heartfelt something to our parents, to our students. The students got a debriefing, which was basically telling them, no, that's not what you heard. No, that's not what was said. Also, nobody came out to address the parents, only at the parent meeting, which was the principal, and her story was not very consistent with the events that all the students were saying was happening. And so it's just, we have yet to hear anything from the board as to what's going on. Even when I try to address it as a parent, I'm being told, oh, you're just speaking like this, you're not listening to the community, which I honestly think I'm probably the only one that is listening to the community. But the fact that I'm not looked at as a parent, that my concerns are not being heard as a parent is very concerning to me. And as well as I have to fight to make sure that my McKinley Academy student is included in their homeschool, because it's not. I'm not getting included. The school says they are, the McKinley Academy says they are, but it's not. There's no communication between academy and the front staff at the school. So there's a lot of inconsistencies going on, and I ask the board, please address our parents. Please put it on your agenda. Please tell our students that you understand their trauma, that you understand that they were in this gym crying, that the parents that come out and saw their parents, their students separated because they got left at the high school and somewhere down here, that they're okay, that it's okay. I understand your trauma. I understand what you went through. Let's help. Let's work together. And yet nothing is being done. It's just being brushed under the rug as if it didn't happen. So I urge the board again, and I'll probably keep coming until something is done, because I don't think this traumatic event is just going to be under the rug. I think our students are going to live with this for the rest of their lives. And to know that their board supports them is definitely will help them heal. Right now, they just feel like it got pushed under the rug and they were forgotten. All the students up there have told me, Miss Nez, if this was Maya Mira, if this was Gallup, something would have been done. Security would have been increased. There would have been a cop here already. Nothing has been done. So please, board members, come to Tohatchi and talk to our high school students. They are still very traumatized. They still lost respect in their principal and in their staff that have left them during this traumatic event. Thank you.
Thank you. Next public comment is from Brenda B.
Yate, Shea, Brenda Begay, good evening, community members, board members, superintendent, everybody that's here. And I do have some questions regarding the federal funds. As a parent, I would like to know from the board members, Mr. Hyatt, what is going on? What is the status of the GOM funding and for the IEC membership status? And also for, just like Ms. Nez put it out there, the safety of the kids. I have other safety concerns with the bus drivers, the drop-off points. I have a grandson that's a 5-year-old, and I live in Mexican Springs, and I live about 200 feet south of the city village. And last week, I was walking up to the bus stop. My grandson was getting dropped off, and there was 5 dogs. 3 large dogs, 2 small animals that came barking up to my grandson as he got off the bus. The bus driver wasn't even concerned. She just looked at the dogs, closed the door, drove off. So I called central office. I was directed to a lady that took care of the Gallup area bus routes. So she redirected me back to Mr. White, and I have been trying to get a hold of Mr. White, so I contacted Mr. Bond. I left a message for him, and I have received no feedback from them. And, we need something done. According to Navajo Housing Authority policy, the housing tenants, homeowners, and rental tenants, they're only allowed 2 dogs, and they need to be tied up. As a former employee of NHA, I know this for a fact. So, I'm concerned for these kids, and then also the drop-off point. I'd rather have the bus stop where he's dropping them off now, because when the bus is coming back, going back to the school, my grandson's the last drop-off, and it's on the dirt road. And where I live, there's a bend where drivers can't see you, and coming down that hill towards the chapter house is also a concern, because community members, visitors, whoever going through there, go down that hill and up that hill like it's a freeway. You know, there's signs that need to be posted because it's a school district route as well. And then also, I've also notified NHA, I've also notified the chapter house, and I have gotten no feedback. And it's just a very, very, very big concern. And then also, Ms. Nez brought up the incident with the high school when they had that lockdown. As far as I know, teachers did leave their students. And teachers ran down here. They came to the elementary, and there's only very few students that came with the students. Where were the other teachers? Where were the other staff members, administrators? Where did they go? I mean, there's a lot of discrepancies in communication, collaboration with the school, and some of the community members, and that it's just really very disappointing. I'm sorry to say I'm disappointed with the administrators at the school, the central office, dealing with these safety issues, and even with NHA, even with the chapter. I really would like some help with these high safety issues, and then also the feedback on the JOM status.
Your time is up. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next public comment is Andrea Thomas.
Good evening, Superintendent, Mr. Hyatt, board members, parents, audience, administration. I would like to address two things. The first one being the activity buses. I did hear that new buses are now coming in, and I'm hoping that the rural school areas are being accounted for, and especially for Tohatchi High School. Being a parent of an athlete and many other athletes, every year we go through this as when they go on travel, a bus breaks down. And even last 2 weekends ago, cross-country team left to Rio Rancho. They had to get a bus out of Theru because their bus was acting up. And I know this, as far as the girls' basketball teams and the boys' basketball teams, we go through this every year. Therefore, I really would like for our schools, for Tohatchi, to be on the list to get a couple new buses out here. The other thing I like to bring up is going back to the security issues and the activities that are going on here at the high school. Something, I know we had a parent meeting for the senior class, and we were addressed, we were informed of what was going on by administration, meaning the principal, the counselors, and security there. Therefore, there was comments made. They did hand out a paper of our concerns and suggestions that were there. And this was to also be shared with central office. So I'm hoping that this is being done, because we did have a lot of concerns, and I know some of the parents had suggestions. There were some that were very upset, but I feel that, you parents that are here tonight, thank you for being here. But I also like to say, these school board meetings happen for us, for our children, and you need to attend them when they do happen. I've been attending them for the past 4 years since my daughter went into high school. And my concerns have been addressed. We can't just show up when something happens, if our children are going to be at this school and graduate from this school, then my suggestion is that you parents need to attend these school board meetings. The other thing is on basketball. Our season's coming up, and with the security issue, again, we were told that the front doors would be open going in, the back doors were going to be closed, and my biggest problem, and for the past 4 years has been my biggest problem, is the ventilation in there. You know, it is very hot, and all I hear is a work order has been put in. A work order has been put in. Nothing has happened. And then the other comment was there's nothing we can do. I know that we are getting a new high school here, but you know, that's a couple years on down the road. And for our Tohatchi community, these sport events are very big here, especially for the elderly, you know. So I'm asking that something to be done within for the high school, for the gymnasium, for ventilation. That's another safety issue that you can look at as far as our athletes being on that court.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Thank you.
We'll now move down to 5B, report superintendent report.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, before I give my comments, we had some conversations with Teach for America, and they asked to give a report, and I believe the board members also asked for a report, and so they're finally able to make that happen this evening. And so I'd like to introduce Elroy Nelson, who is here to give an update.
Thank you for that, Superintendent. Good to be here this evening in my home community of Tohatchi. This is where my in-laws are from. And I currently serve as a director that oversees partnerships for Teach for America here in the state of New Mexico. We're proudly based in Gallup, and we've been there for the last 20 years now. Actually 19 years. We'll be celebrating 20 years this coming January 2020. And I'm just really proud to be part of an organization that has a lot of roots in the community on a very local level. We continue to have a great partnership with GMCS over the last 18 years since we were founded in 2001. I'm really proud to share with the board here, and I will also take questions afterwards, that we are very proud of 5 of our teachers that are currently teaching in the school district that are second generation teachers, meaning that they were impacted personally by high school or elementary school teachers that was TFA, and they went back off to school and came back as teachers in our program. So we're really excited about that. For the first time for Tohatchi, we actually have 2 teachers that are teaching at the high school locally here in this community, and it's their first year. For those of you in the room and for the board members that are not really familiar with Teach for America, we're a national nonprofit program. We have around 52 regions all across the United States. Our most rural areas would be New Mexico, of course, and another region up in South Dakota. Since I've been in this program and been a director for the last 4 years, I've had the awesome opportunity to travel all across the school district and really look at how do we expand our partnerships with our tribal communities, more specifically, especially that we know in our school district here for GMCS is really proud of our very high Native American student population. And then along on that note, also we continually building partnerships with other school districts in Espanola, Albuquerque School District, as well as also Central Consolidated Schools. Over the last 2 years now, we've taken an effort to where we've done more expansion on the central part of the state of New Mexico. And so before, we had a majority of our teachers placed in this school district, and as time went forward till today, we have a good amount of teachers that are also are impacting our Pueblo students in that population in the central part of the state. Overall, though, looking into 2020, I foresee an estimation around maybe 20 to 30 teachers again coming back to this community. That includes those that are currently teaching here, and we are working and continuously improving on the retention rate of our teachers being here more than 2 years, because that's always a concern from parents and from community members and from elected leaders on ensuring that the nonprofits that are in the community are doing this work are really being responsive to the needs of the communities that they're serving. And so that's my job. And I've had it's been such an honor to not only build stronger partnerships with our tribal leaders, but also with our local school board members. And I know that I met with each and every one of you personally before over the last couple of years now, and provide updates on what we're doing with our programming. As you can see on the handout here, we have 54 teachers right now in the state of New Mexico. Those are first and second year. For our program, our teachers, we recruit them. We did a lot of stuff locally, but we recruit on a national level. They apply to our program. We're really proud to say that our program is as highly competitive of ensuring we choose the best competitive teachers on a national level. So if you're going to get into Teach for America, it's like you're getting into an Ivy League school or going to get a job on a very corporate level, where in many cases that process and the process of elimination is very stringent to ensuring that you pick the right people. And so we're really proud of that fact, and especially knowing that a good amount of our core right now, that our teachers are coming from some very prestigious schools all across the country and are coming back to really make an impact here in the state of New Mexico and in this school district. The last component to all this is really looking at like our strategic priorities, and I laid that out for you in this handout in terms of where we're going from here. One of the biggest things that's on top of my mind as being this director is ensuring the financial sustainability of our program, since we are going to be celebrating 20 years for our anniversary next year. So one of our asks that we've made on the front part of the handout here is that we're working with tribal leaders like Navajo Nation President Jonathan Nez and so many others in the state of New Mexico to make this ask to the New Mexico State Legislature to reinstate our $500,000 amount that we have had in the past that was part of our Indian Education Act funds. So we're now working with various lawmakers to make that happen. And so having the support from the superintendent and from the school board in ensuring that we fulfill that ask will allow us to really sustain ourselves going into the next 3-4 years from now, and ensuring that we continue to bring these teachers and retain them here in the school district. On that note, I mean, there's, besides whatever's listed here, I would like to provide the opportunity for the board to ask any questions you may have for us. And on one last note, since 2001 in our partnership for 18 years with GMCS, this school district has employed over 364 teachers. And those teachers impacted the lives of around 20,000 plus GMCS students. So we're really excited at the fact like we've built this relationship over the last 18 years, and I would love to see it move forward and we continue that partnership. So thank you for the opportunity.
Sir, I have a couple of questions. All right, thank you for coming out here. And this is something that I requested for to be put on the agenda to get a report from you for Teach for America. And I'm very thankful that I know we kind of moved it up a couple of times, but I'm so thankful you're here in Tohatchi presenting this to us. My first question is, do you, as a Teach for America entity, also help the teachers that are coming in with cultural sensitivity training? Is my first question. I don't know if you want me to give you all the questions, or do you want me to give you one by one?
You can give me all the questions.
Okay, so that's my first one. The second one is, how many Native American teachers do you have currently with Teach for America? And how many teachers in GMCS are currently here in our school district, across our district? And I am very curious about, out of the 364 teachers that you mentioned have served GMCS, how many are still here? Mm-hmm. And if you know the longest teacher that has served for Teach for America still in our district. Is it?
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you
That's
for that.
Kevin's questions too, he said.
Is that the same as yours as well, Kevin? Okay. Well, Oh,
Besides the questions Priscilla asked was, what process do you guys go through as far as trying to recruit Native American teachers to to our areas?
okay. So I just wrote down the questions real quick. So first off, in terms of how we approach cultural sensitivity and providing that type of knowledge to our new teachers that are not from these areas and are coming into many times first time coming into Mexico or first time working in a very rural area. The way that we've set it up is that when they go through this selection process after we recruit them, they go to a summer training that we call Institute. Previous years it was hosted by Arizona State University. Now we actually host our training in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we have a unique partnership with a lot of the different tribes that we're working with. So rather that was in Arizona, we ensured that our teachers coming in were actually teaching Native students at this particular institute. So it's basically like teacher boot camp for a whole month that they go through. And then the same at Tulsa, Oklahoma, they went through the same process and were in classrooms teaching, getting this training, and had coaches that were Native as well. And so that was like the first, I would say, time they would, in many cases, they would approach what it means to work in tribal nations, how to work and what sovereignty is, and how to respect that sovereignty and how you're working on tribal lands. So that process is already put in that place for them. And as we go into, we have a whole segment called Orientation Week, where they're here for a little over 2 weeks before they send them off to their communities or to their schools. That gives them the opportunity to go back, either teaching here in Tohatchi or out at Crown Point, or teaching in Zuni. There's that time is where they're out there at their schools and meeting a community member, or we have an alumni that's there that's welcoming them in to ensure like they're knowing the basics. I always remember hearing in the past just that whole experience for Corps members, because a lot of times it was always something new for them, and that it was their first time coming on to tribal lands. And so we were always mindful, as I could say, even when I came on staff 4 years ago, to ensure that our teachers understood not only cultural taboos as well, but also how to be a community partner and going into these communities and respecting tribal law and working with parents there. And that's like the first thing that we instill into our teachers, Priscilla, is ensuring that when they are going to these communities, they're prepared as the best as they can as a new community member going in there and teaching. And along that same note as well, throughout the course of their 2 years, they're mentored by a coach on our team. So it's myself and 3 other people that are Native. And we're there to provide whatever the support they need or to answer any questions they may have in regards to the cultural context of Navajo or Zuni or any of the other pueblos they're working in. And then the last part too, to answer another question for you, Priscilla, is right now in the state of New Mexico, out of all the teachers that we have out of the 54, we have 7 of them that are Native. And out of the 7, 6 are Diné, they're Navajo. And they are teaching in CCSD or here in this school district. And then out of the 364 teachers that you had asked that we've had this relationship over 18 years, I don't know who that person is, Priscilla, and who's been here the longest, because we have so many alumni over the 2 years that we disconnect from that are doing this work. But I can tell you this, that out of all the TFA teachers that have come to GMCS, our retention rate is a little over 80%. So we have teachers that are staying here longer than the 2 years and are continuously impacting those communities. Same for CCSD. We have a huge record of teachers in stellar work at Shiprock High School as an example. Same with Gallup High and Mayamira. And then the last part too with how do we do recruitment, Kevin, on a national level? We actually have a very awesome team that does this. It's a whole different department of Teach for America. But the way it works in ensuring we recruit Native teachers is we have strong partnerships with the NIEA. We do a lot of stuff with ACES because we want to get more math and computer teachers back in these areas where it's really limited. And then at the same level with those partnerships, we're working a lot with the universities that have a large Native American population. And so we actually have recruiters at these schools. And when I came on board with TFA 4 years ago, one of the things that I said was that we're not actively recruiting through Diné College's teacher preparation program because it's one of the largest in the nation. And so now we have a TFA recruiter that's actually working with tribal colleges. And that was never there the first time that I came on board with TFA. And so I feel like over the course of the last couple of years now, the new native staff on our team has made a concerted effort on local recruitment. And so the last 2 years, I've invested a lot of my time in attending more local events here to really promote Teach for America's programming, and have done our best to recruit like the Nomination Fair, Shiprock Fair, etc., to really put our names out there, let people know that we're actually doing this work more here. I think that's all the questions that I responded to.
I just want to say thank you. I think that's the report that we wanted to hear and to know how Teach for America was continuing within Gallup McKinley County Schools.
And then to Ms. Manolito, I'll find that teacher that's been here the longest in the school district, okay?
I'd like to also add, just for the board members and the community's information, there has been talk, obviously there's a funding need for TFA to stay in existence. And the state of New Mexico already underfunds Indian education in our area. Actually, we get piddly compared to what the Indian Education Act requires. So this is one way in which we're receiving some of those funds that we wouldn't otherwise receive. It appears, at least through the way the state wants to give money out, especially to our district, who has a large Native American population that deserves more of the funds that are actually in place currently. And so I just continue to advocate that Teach for America continues to push to keep teachers in our area. I know a year or two ago they were talking about moving to the corridor. While there are Native American students in the corridor of New Mexico, the greatest need, it's pretty obvious that the need is in our communities on the northwest part of the state and a few others. But I hope that we can continue to advocate to keep teachers here, and the majority of those teachers here where the services are needed the most. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you so much, Superintendent Hyatt, and I look forward to providing us a report next year as well. So thank you for the opportunity. Yep.
The next item, when we typically go to rural parts of the county, I give an update, kind of what's happening in that community with respect to student achievement, and also with respect to capital projects that we have going on or have had go on in the community, so that people are aware of the dollars that are being spent and the success that students are having across the school district. And so I wanted to start out by a little bit of information. When I talk about the Tohatchi community, I also include Twin Lakes Elementary in that. It's part of this community also. And I'll give you a couple of statistics or pieces of data that have happened this past year with respect to the state assessment. We recognize several students this evening, and I want to talk a little bit about what their scores mean with respect to the whole community or whole schools. Twin Lakes, for those of you who don't know, ranked number 1 among all Gallup McKinley County schools as far as 1-year and 2-year math growth in the whole. So I'm not just comparing them to elementary schools. That's all schools, all 33 schools in the school district. So we're excited for them. Twin Lakes also ranked number 2 among all GMCS schools in 1-year and 2-year ELA growth. So ELA is English Language Arts growth. And so not only in math, but they also accomplished the same thing in English. And so that was pretty exciting. A little closer to home where we're at today, Tohatchi Middle School had the second highest 1-year math growth of all GMCS middle schools. So there's a couple of exciting pieces of data for students here in this community. In addition to that, although there's a host of other things that go along with those improvements that we could talk about, in my time I also want to talk about a few things that have happened with respect to funding through capital dollars that come into the community. It's kind of old news, but obviously there's new bleachers, which cost hundreds of thousands of dollars actually to be put in place at Tohatchi High School. As you've noticed, all the old teacherages have been torn down and removed from the property, not only in Tohatchi, but also in Crown Point, Thoreau, and Navajo, which was over $1 million just to do that. We actually are looking and seeking more funding to build at least 8 more teacherages in Tohatchi specifically, along with other communities around the county, to help make sure that we have places for teachers to come into our communities to teach. Kind of coincides with that is that we've also, as many know, for teachers, to try to incentivize teachers to come to our communities, we've also offered free rent and utilities actually, so that teachers don't have the burden of the high costs of rent in our communities, so that when we receive good teachers here in our communities like we have, that they stay. And wants, and it's one of the incentives in order to stay and continue to work with our students. A couple of athletic things. It was about a year or so ago, we had the track resurfaced, I believe, out here. Also, throwing pits are being put in right now. The concrete's been poured, and the cages will be in before the season starts in February. And as was this afternoon, we were out here. The late Senator Pinto, actually during this last legislative session, he actually, in capital dollars, gave the school district money in order to put a parent-student community center here on the campus. And so what that entails is that we will have a new portable building that will be placed on the site. We'll have that open in the evenings and staffed so that students and parents can come in and work on projects. They'll have computers, internet access, and those types of things. So that if you don't have those things at home, or if you're doing a class project and don't have the materials, we'll have all those materials here in your community so you can come in and use that facility and work on those projects with your children. Or children can come in and do that by themselves. But we encourage the community to utilize this. We're trying to procure the actual building right now. It's probably going to be an investment of over $100,000 into this community. 2 communities received funds. It was this community and also Crown Point. And so those 2 communities will have this opportunity. And if next session, we'll still fight for other funds. It's kind of our pilot projects to help provide that service to the school district. In addition to that, it was mentioned this evening, and you'll hopefully approve this evening. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't. But we have been pursuing to build a new Tohatchi High School, which is far overdue in this community. Not only this community, but others. But we're really excited about that. And I'll touch a little bit on some of the safety things that have happened as of late. And this kind of ties into it. This was not one of the next schools that should have been built. But over a year ago, we pushed for this school to be built. One of the main reasons was because of the way it was designed and the way it's in pods across the campus. And we learned not too long ago how having pods in this part of in a colder climate for one, but with respect to safety, it causes problems. And so we knew that we needed to get a school building that is in one location and enclosed in one building, so students and staff and others aren't being transported or moving around outside to get from school building to school building, because that poses a larger safety concern. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to that particular item. In addition, a couple other items before I go on to the last topic is because of the success that we have seen at Tohatchi Middle School, we have a one-to-one device, electronic device initiative that happened here. I think was that the middle school? No, it wasn't. It was the elementary here. Was it mid school? It was the elementary. It wasn't the mid school. But the elementary here, at the mid school, at Thoreau Mid School, and then Saigai High School, I believe. We're looking to roll out a one-to-one laptop initiative for all middle schools across Gallup McKinley County schools, and I'll be bringing that to the board in the near future. We know the importance of 21st century technology and our students' ability to use it, and we have been behind in our communities because of our lack of internet access and the amount of resources we have with respect to laptops and computers for students to use. And so I will be bringing more information about that in the near future. And we hope to expand that, start with the middle schools and then expand that to other grade levels. The last thing I wanted to report on before I talk about some of the safety things that happened in this community recently, we just received our final award through our efforts at the legislative session. As you know, we received about $6.3 million to pay off teacherages. And so we received those funds already, and we look to pay off our teacherage debt, or actually we already have paid off our teacherage debt. And so we no longer have that hanging over us. Started out as a $49 million debt. So that was through the efforts of us fighting at the legislative session, this last session, to get those dollars. In addition to that, we received a little over about $700,000, including the dollars that Senator Pinto gave us, and it came from other legislators in our community. Actually, all legislators in our community gave us more money, about $700,000. So that takes it up to around 16. Okay, I got to add correctly, $7 million. And then we just found out a couple weeks ago that with the remaining dollars that was being allocated to impact aid school districts, that we are receiving around 8.5 more million dollars for capital projects, which means things like teacherages, roofing systems that are failing, heating systems that are failing, those types of things, so that we can make in parking lots, so that we can make sure that we are catching up because of the way the state has been treating us with respect to capital dollars. And so we are excited. That's never happened in this school district. I don't think we've received more than $100,000, let alone 15.5 million total dollars in one legislative session. So that's something to celebrate. And slightly clap for. Lastly, I want to talk about. I want to touch on. Spent a lot of time on this. Given the situation that happened here in Tohatchi several weeks ago. The situation that happened that day at Tohatchi High School that kind of fell over into Tohatchi Middle School and Tohatchi Elementary and the whole community. While we have investigated most of that, there's still a few things that we're still trying to figure out with respect to what happened that day. And whether that's through video or whether that's through interviews or whether that's kind of just piecing some of the pieces to the puzzle together. And also there is information that still we may never know with respect to some of the things that the police may know that they can't reveal to us. But after my comments, we actually have the Undersheriff Mariano from the county that is here. We also invited Dan Nation, who could not make it this evening, and invite him after I speak to share some comments about that day, so that he can give you a perspective from the police department, one of the police departments that was there during what transpired that day. Unfortunately, this day there was a kind of a perfect storm of events, and not all of it was around a bullet that was shot or multiple bullets that was shot by police officers or threats of an individual wanting to commit suicide, along with a power outage. Along with when the power came back on, there was like a smoke coming out of one of our. This all happened all at the same time, plus the weather. It was raining that day, which didn't help at all. But this added to the stress and the panic of that kind of a situation. As we talked to some parents last board meeting, I can't fathom, I don't understand, and I don't want anybody to ever have to go through understanding whether their students are safe in our schools, or whether during that particular day that their students whether they were safe or not. That's something that no parent or no student should have to face, or staff. Unfortunately, it did happen. There were a chain of events and decisions made that were done right in that situation. There were also things that could be improved upon and decisions that could be made differently. Sometimes in those situations, there's not always a right answer. Sometimes you have to make a decision on the fly, and in hindsight, it may not have been the right decision, or you could have got it perfectly right. It's not like we can plan for those events with respect to knowing exactly what's going to happen, but there are things that the district does to make sure our safety plans are in place according to state law, and making sure that we're trying to do our best as school sites and as a district to make sure that we have up-to-date information from law enforcement of what kind of safety protocol we have in place at school sites. But again, in those kinds of situations, sometimes panic ensues, and things probably never work out perfectly, but there's always something to be learned from those situations. And so at this particular time, I want to talk a little bit about some of those things that we're trying to do to do better, in hopes that this never happens again. But you always want to be as prepared as possible. So we continually work with law enforcement to look at our safety protocol, with the state to look at our safety protocols to make sure that we are up to date with what we should be doing and how we should be enforcing things when an event like this or any other kind of event ensues. We have to be careful that when we talk about things, we talk about them in the right language. That day, for example, even though we may not have had the language, and that's probably something we learned from this, is we didn't have the language for a relocation. What happened that day is the FBI closed off the entrance to Tohatchi High School. So our students couldn't leave the campus. Parents couldn't come on the campus. Buses couldn't come on the campus from that direction. And so we had to relocate students to another location. And so what it was portrayed by some, and I understand why, because it is a situation where there is stress involved, it was portrayed as an evacuation because there was an active shooter on campus. And although it truly did probably felt like that, and if I had been there, I probably would have thought the same thing. But we really tried to get students from one location to another so parents could get their students, so that buses could come in and take students home. And unfortunately, at that time, I think was when the power went out, and we had to move students not only from high school to the mid school, but then the mid school down to the elementary. Fortunately, they're fairly close by. And during that time, again, I'm not saying that things went perfectly. There's things we learned from that could definitely, we can do better, and we're working on that. We've had Mr. Bond, and specifically Mr. Ben Chavez, who has had several different meetings, and actually we were invited to a parent meeting that he also attended. I was in Santa Fe coming back, and I couldn't get back in time. But trying to, for those parents that want us to come and talk about some of their concerns, so we can listen to them, and listen to ways in which we could get better. Some things we've learned from parents that we didn't know. And so those conversations have been great to have so that we can improve our practices with respect to safety, protocol, evacuations, lockdowns, and those types of situations. Nothing has been swept under the rug, has been mentioned. There is just at times when you cannot release information, whether it's you don't have accurate information, so you have to be careful about what you release, or there's information that you just don't know. And so sometimes in those situations, people want answers to everything that transpired during those times. And there's just, sometimes it's best to wait until you have the actual information before you can release it, or else you then stir up rumors, or you have to second guess, or you have to not second guess, but you have to correct yourself over and over because you may have given out bad information. So you have to be really careful about that. Whether you're a police officer, or whether you're a superintendent or principal, or whoever you might be. There's also, we know that students and staff heard gunshots, and we had mentioned that those gunshots were not from an active shooter on campus, and that was true. Some people said that was a lie. It was not a lie. It was actually gunshots, from what we understand, from a police officer's gun. Nonetheless, you hear gunshots in a community, it raises alarm, and you need to act just as if they were happening on campus. We have added security. We have security during the daytime. We actually added security at nighttime because there was a concern that students that are at sports events or practicing here in the community, we wanted to make sure that they felt safe, and so we added a security officer that stays here all night long here in the Tohatchi High School and in this area. So that when students are coming home off of buses at night, or they're at an event in Albuquerque or wherever they're traveling from for an athletic event, that when they get home, they also have security here at the same time. And so with that, I want to invite County Undersheriff Mariano to come up and let him say whatever he would like to say regarding the events that happened that day. And we appreciate him taking the time to come out here. Board members, if you have questions after he's done, welcome questions.
Well, good evening, folks of Tohatchi, Superintendent Hyatt, Chairman Schaaf, Ms. Manuelito, Mr. Mitchell. Let me put it to you this way. I have to back up before September 23rd to give you the whole picture here, okay? So we have to go back to September 10th. On September 10th, we came out because the three principals from the schools here in Tohatchi asked for active shooter training, active threat training. So on September 10th, we communicated with Principal Allison, Principal Morrison, and Principal Holder about having a training. So on September 10th, we had a training with all of their staff here at the elementary school. On the 20th of September, we went to Twin Lakes Elementary School, and we had a training with them. Same thing. Active shooter, active threat training, just as the district has asked us to do. And so we worked with these schools as they reached out to us. So then when you fast forward to September 23rd, we have an incident that was improperly called an active shooter. And it wasn't because somebody lied or didn't tell the truth. Children heard exactly what they heard. The high schoolers heard exactly what they heard. They heard shots that were coming from what they believed was on their campus. It wasn't on their campus. It was between 491 and the guard shack, but between Navajo Police Department and the security that was there, they kept the threat off of the campus. They never made it past the guard shack. They never made it into the parking lot. They never made it to the school because the people that were there took corrective action. Principal Allison had already contacted Navajo Police Department. Navajo Police Department was already there investigating another incident involving the individual who had threatened to kill himself that particular day. And so Navajo Police Department was the one that reached out to us and said, hey, can the sheriff's office come out here and help us? We don't know what we got, but we got something going on. And so the original call was shots fired, which is what everybody heard, right? And students said, and parents heard, and got text messages and emails, and the whole community heard shots fired out in Tohatchi. And so everybody was headed this direction. And ultimately, Mr. Hyatt is correct. The shots were not fired from a suspect. They did not come from an assailant. They did not come from somebody trying to shoot up the school. That was not what happened. Somebody tried to run the blockade that Navajo Police Department had put at 491 and the turnoff to the high school. Navajo Police Department took what they believed was the appropriate action to stop that particular person from coming on the campus. That person was not armed, and we don't know what that person's intentions were at the campus, but we know that he didn't have a gun and that he was not the one that fired at any students, at any staff, or anybody on the campus. It doesn't change the fact that family members and students heard shots fired. So law enforcement's goal is normally to communicate as much information to the public as we can up front, as quickly as we can. And so the first thing that I sent to the Gallup Sun to try to get out on their Facebook page was that there was no active shooter at Tohatchi High School. And this is where the sheriff's office might have failed a little bit. How many of you folks know the true definition of an active shooter? So I've got 3 people that raised their hand. And so you guys hear no active shooter, that means no shots fired. And if no shots are fired, then that means your children were lying. And that wasn't true. Your children were telling the truth. So what happened was law enforcement had exchanged fire, and there wasn't an active shooter. The definition of an active shooter is a person actively engaged in killing or trying to kill people in a confined and populated area. And so when we said from the sheriff's office there was no active shooter, we used that definition, and we failed to communicate with you all properly. It got a little bit more complicated because Navajo Police Department has primary jurisdiction in the Tohatchi area, as well as all 3 Tohatchi schools, elementary, mid, and high school. They were already here on scene. They were already investigating. They asked for our assistance here at the elementary school because there was hundreds of people all in the gymnasium, which was warm. I remember it was warm. And they all needed help getting home. Buses were all clogged up. Parents were here looking for their students, and they needed some assistance. So that's why we came out. Ultimately, Navajo Police Department turned it over to the FBI. Once the FBI has it, that's it for communication. Not that they won't communicate, but an FBI investigation cannot be released publicly. And so we were basically capped at that point from giving any more information to the public, which hurts you folks. And it basically made people think, well, if the police officers are saying there was no shots and my kids heard shots, then clearly law enforcement is hiding what's happening out here. And that is not what happened. We were just capped from releasing any more information. So we worked with the principals, and something that the school district has done that we would like to commend you guys for is whether it be Mr. Chavez or whether it be the whole group or whatever it was you guys decided to do. The school board came together and said, we're going to put 3 deep phone numbers and floor plans available to law enforcement. So here's what happened. Off of that 3 deep phone number list that you provided, on my way out here, I contacted Principal Allison on her cell phone. So 15 minutes before we ever arrived, I had contact with Principal Allison. I knew that there was a lot of people at the elementary school, and we had a basic understanding of what was happening. Previous to this, 3-4 years ago, we would have had no communication with you folks, and we wouldn't have known until we got there. And so the school district is taking the right approach to the training, to the 3 deep phone numbers, to the floor plans, and everything that they're providing law enforcement in order for law enforcement to better work with the community and better work with the students and the staff. So whatever you've done, keep doing it, because that's working. That worked very well for us. And so what we're doing as a sheriff's office is we're putting together books and binders that have the 3 deep phone numbers and all the floor plans for all of the schools together to give to all the supervisors and the deputies that we have to make sure they have the most effective and up-to-date communication that you guys are giving us. The other thing that the school board did was gave the sheriff's office access to the site, which allows us to have the safety team members' names, the principals and 3 deep phone numbers, their names and cell phone numbers, as well as any other information about the last time you guys did training or had a safety training and what those problems might have been. So it's giving us this really cohesive opportunity to work together as the school and as law enforcement. So even though we don't have primary jurisdiction here, we were here for the community to teach. The sheriff is Ron Silversmith, and he asked that we come out and teach the schools. He asked that we come out and provide the training, regardless of jurisdiction. that we come out and give you guys the training that you needed. So we're continuing to work with Principal Allison to try to do a follow-up training for her staff. Our schedule's pretty busy till Christmas, but we're going to keep working with BIE schools and Gallup McKinley County schools in order to try to put as much training together as we can for all of the schools that are in our community. Superintendent Hyatt.
Thank you, Sheriff Mariano. Thank you for your help that day. And I also want to thank our parents. I know it was a difficult situation, but I appreciate the many who had patience in this as we tried to unravel what took place and things that we can do better. Thank you to the students for being patient with us also, and also to the board for giving us opportunities to try to change the way we do business with respect to safety. We actually have more safety protocol in the district than's even required by law, and we have been working on this for several years in different meetings and different trainings to make sure that we get better, and that's what we have to do. That's what we have to learn from this event, is that we have to get better, and so we're working to do that. Board members, do you have any questions for the Sheriff or
Mr. Superintendent, I just was wondering, I have asked about actual live drills, I guess, that could be taking place, and so I don't know what the answer to that is, because I don't know if, having an actual drill is more helpful than training.
So far what you guys have asked for, what the school district has asked for, is an active shooter training per semester. This semester was prioritized toward the beginning of the semester. Some of the schools that we've already worked with and given a PowerPoint presentation to and gone through the ALICE PowerPoint presentation, those schools felt ready to do an active drill. So rather than having students in session during the PD on Friday afternoons, we're just training the staff. So we put a fake bad guy into the schools. We unload a cap gun, which sounds very realistic to gunfire. Teachers are asked to follow their protocol as it would be an active shooter lockdown. And then we test that particular protocol to see how they did. And at the end, we debrief. What did we learn from each other? How did we work together as law enforcement and school staff? What did the school staff's safety team identify as any weaknesses that we could repair for the future? So Twin Lakes has done a live drill. Sayagay will do a live drill in 2 weeks. So those schools that have already been through the presentation and feel ready to do those kind of testings, we're open and available and have been working with them to do those live style drills where law enforcement and medical staff are on scene to drill the staff in kind of a real-time mode. The only thing it lacks is the students. We don't want to overexcite, panic, or create a medical incident within the facility by having that many students in session. So right now it's just with staff.
And we also do this yearly.
Yep.
Okay. I think that would be helpful to get one in one of our schools, and probably have all our teachers maybe be a part of it. Not only that, I think that, I know it's, I was up at the Gallup Indian Medical Center couple months back, and when they had one, I was up there visiting somebody. They cleared everybody out, and I was talking to a couple of the employees, and they were all excited that they were going to be doing this, and they were saying that they were told exactly what was going to be happening, what to do and how to do it and what to expect. And then when I went back up that evening and saw the same people and asked them, oh, well, how did your drill go? They said, two of them told me that, they were told what was going to happen, what to do, what to expect. And they actually said they freaked out. They were very unprepared. And so that just tells me that, no matter how much training an individual has, or when it actually takes place, no one knows how they're going to react. No one's going to know whether they can handle it or what they're going to do. It's a hard situation, and it's hard. So that told me, it's hard to point fingers at people. You didn't do your job or whatever. You just never know what to expect. Somebody can come behind you and grab you or scare you, and right away you just go into a still motion and don't know what to do sometimes. I mean, we never know. We never know what a person's reaction is going to be when it comes to an actual threat. So.
Good point.
Thank you very much for coming out. And I have some questions and then also a couple of comments. I think as a board member, when we first heard about this incident, It was just right after it happened. And I'm very thankful that we do have that communication with our superintendent and our administration, that we do get these updates and emails as soon as something happens to our school, no matter if it's just a water break or electricity's out or, any buses or, something's happening. We always get an email, and that communication has been very vital and especially critical in this situation. So first of all, I'm thankful for that. And I'm kind of offended also by being told that you, as a board member, that nothing was done, that nothing is a strong word. That means nothing, absolutely nothing. But we have been talking about this for years and have implemented and improved our policies around our children's safety. And especially after Aztec shooting happened, and then the shooting that happened down south again, this has always been on our radar, and we don't want none of our babies, our students, our children hurt on McKinley County, and we have pushed this issue to as far as I've attended many safety meetings with the sheriff, Navajo PD, and with our own strategic planning with our superintendent. So this is you cannot say nothing was done. We have been doing a lot for our children, and we've implemented additional training on this, as you guys just heard from the sheriff. I believe that it was very scary. I would be scared. A manshle, shiyaj, a senior at Daru High School. And, we've seen clips. We've seen these things happen in our schools. And, he's always said, Mom, I would be the first one to try to help. And I can, no, Yaj, don't do that. You get out of there. But that's just him. And I'm always worried about how he would react. So I'm a mom too, and I'm worried. So that is why we push these policies as much as we can. And sometimes, even this situation that happened, I asked our superintendent, Mr. Hyatt, please get a statement out to our parents immediately. And he did. A statement also, correct me if I'm wrong, Sheriff, a statement went out by Navajo PD. A written statement was sent out of what happened, similar to what the sheriff has said. There's no cover up here. I wish we could tell you guys everything, but we don't have whatever the FBI has. But I'm thankful that there is a report that's being generated that the community heard. There was a Facebook, GMCS has a Facebook, that was also published. So as a board member, I have Facebook. And I put a lot of stuff on Facebook about what's happening within our school district or within our schools. And I reposted it. I kept reposting it. I posted the Navajo Police Department report that was released. I reposted Gallup Sons also. So to hear that as board members we didn't do nothing is wrong. There's a lot that we've done to help our children. And I'm very thankful that we do have a staff and administration and funding to support this kind of training. I did ask at one point that if we could retrain. I know they just had a training in September 10, but I asked Mr. Hyatt, can we go back to those schools and just retrain now that they know how scary this situation is? Because sometimes we do that at a training. We sit there and we're on our cell phones and we're texting, or I even see it during the principal's meeting when I go to central office. There's a lot of them on their laptops. Maybe they're taking notes.
They are.
Maybe they're, I don't know what, maybe they're doing lesson plans. Maybe they're doing something. But I noticed that. So maybe now, if we provide this training again, that it'll be more, the teachers will be more assertive. Or maybe somebody missed a training that now they can get this training. And the other thing I want to offer is this is what I did in my community. I'm an executive director at a community center in my area of Theru. And we brought Sheriff Mariano out for our community members to get the training. I would encourage you guys to ask him to come out to do an active shooter training in your community and see what that, and it's a lot of information. And we did have some people nervous, and it's intense. But as parents, we need to know what our children also are dealing with and what our teachers have to deal with to take care of our students. But that is one thing that I would like to say, that I would like to encourage you as community members to get this training. Schedule 2 of them. Maybe you can't make it to the first one, make it to the second one. But those are just my comments I wanted to say, and thank you, Sheriff Mariano, for coming out, and thank you for this report, because I think it was really, hopefully it eases some minds and eases some hearts. But we welcome your suggestions, and whatever comments and suggestions that were given to administration, I think we need to review those. And our strategic plan is a living document that we can implement new things into it. So thank you for that.
If I could add one last piece, just some of the dollars that have been placed into school safety, not only just the time that we've put together to we've met with every law enforcement agency over the last few years, and whether it's collectively or individually, as we review our safety protocol. But we've also invested approximately $4 million in cameras and door security across the district. Actually, our district has better security as far as electronically to get into the building than I bet probably any district even close to our size in the state of New Mexico. That's because the board donated or allowed us to obligate those funds to provide better safety. And those cameras were actually very helpful in this incident. We could see what happened. We could see how the students moved from facility to facility. And so that was a lot of money that we invested a few years ago in order to make sure for incidents like this, it wasn't just to catch kids doing bad things, which sometimes the cameras are used for, or adults to do bad things, but also for situations like this where we can look at those video cameras to see what's happening live, or what happened during that time so we can improve. We also applied for hundreds of thousands of dollars in security funds for our district that we were awarded by the state for a variety of things, whether it's fencing, which this campus needs very much. Whether we have a new building or not, it still needs fencing, along with other buildings in the district, or whether it's walkie-talkies or whatever it might be. We also design buildings differently now, so that they're more safe. Window locations, the way people enter the building. There's a lot of thought that goes around how new buildings are constructed regarding safety. Even I just drove by the guard shacks that we had that was out at Tohatchi High School today. It's tens of thousands of dollars that those shacks were put across the county to try to help monitor people coming in and off the campus. So it's just a few of the things where dollars have been placed to try to ensure safety, along with communication, along with training. So I just wanted to add that.
Board reports.
I really don't have a report at this time, but I just wanted to go back to what you said about the $63 million that went towards teacherages, and how we now offer our teachers free rent. And that was mainly due to the board wanting to retain our teachers here in the rural areas. I know 2 years ago, it was a big fight because we were trying to raise the rent. We were actually trying to raise rent on those teacherages for our teachers. And we fought hard, and we went from raising the rent to actually free rent. So I am very excited for that, and I'm hoping that that is something that's going to really help to keep our teachers here in our rural areas.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. I just wanted to say that I attended the National Indian Education Association conference, and that conference, I would say a fourth of that conference dealt with security, and all the way to active shooters, to mental health, to security cameras. And I mean, that was like the big thing happening. And I would like to say that we are taking wonderful strides and steps to secure our children, because some of them, first of all, don't even have the funding. They wish they had funding for cameras or even a security guard, or I know we contract our security guards out and they can't even, I mean, I felt like talking about our school, we were like an Albuquerque school or something, a Rio Rancho school, because some of our indigenous schools out on other areas of the reservations don't even have the extent of what we have. And I just felt very proud of ourselves and of our school district for doing wonderful jobs for our children. There are some wonderful indigenous curriculums that are being developed, and I think that it's so, we had individuals. I was very proud of my sister Sandra Freeland. Her presentation and her breakout session was pretty packed, with a lot of people wanting to know what we are implementing in our district. And she talked about, you know, as Native people, as the Ne people, and in our own sacred ways, all the way from the conception of the baby, how you, the mother and the father, there's like strict guidelines to raise this child in a perfect balanced way. And that was incredible, from the cradle board to, you know, all these different things that she just talked so wonderfully about our children. And she had she was going, even though her session ended, she was out in the hallway doing a lot of questions. And we also had our Navajo Nation departments there presenting on curriculum and moving some stuff. So it was a very meaningful training, conference, convention that was available to our indigenous people. And a lot of connections were made. And we did hear about, all the way from there, we did hear about Teach for America and how they're trying to get more teachers of a Native American background to be teachers. And there's a lot of programs out there for growing your own. And that's one thing that, again, we've been emphasizing to Superintendent Hyatt, that we need to continue to push for those kind of things to grow our own here in Gallup McKinley County. And they have implemented funding through the legislation also. So that's what I wanted to report. And I did attend a couple of, maybe more than a couple, maybe 4 or 5 impact aid meetings, all the way to Roswell, to Santa Fe. And then I had to do some stuff for Head Start for Navajo Nation, but I just watched on the internet the meeting with our legislators here in Gallup a few weeks ago. So I really would like to continue to encourage the community of Tohatchi to support us for our impact aid monies. We really need that money to stay here, and that's what we're fighting for. Sometimes we're up in Santa Fe, Mr. Hyatt, Giovanna, our board members here, they're doing a phenomenal job to fight for that money. And now we've also got our Navajo Nation and our Pueblos and our Apache tribes on board to help us. All of us are uniting to fight for that with CCSD, Zuni, and I don't know how many other school districts that have majority Native American on them. So we're pushing that effort for our children. So please, if you hear about impact aid, or if you see your legislator, please encourage them for we want 100% of our impact aid. That's my personal wish, is to get 100% of our impact aid. So thank you, Mr. Shaw and board members. Mr. Hyatt, or Mr. Shaw, I'm sorry, I have a question on this. Is there any possibility that we can get this out to our employees before the new year?
Mr. Chair, Mrs. Manuelito.
And put a
yes.
big red bow on it?
Actually, in the action item, I don't think I can get a red bow to travel electronically to a bank account, but if I could, I would. Maybe we can do those little flashy balloons and sparklers on our phones or something like that. Members of the board, due to efficiency, due of careful watch of public funds, and also with, I think this is partially a direct reflection of our efforts legislatively to get things paid off with respect to teacherages. We have extra funds again this year, coming in a different direction from a different location, but we felt it was necessary to help retain our staff, to again offer a one-time retention addenda to all staff, and to do that one-time addenda that it is the same amount for all staff, one amount of $500. And to answer your question, that was the long version part. The short version is yes, we plan to distribute that on November 29th, which is the last payday in November. All employees would receive another distribution to their accounts of $500 more, obviously minus taxes. So that retirement's not taken out, just taxes. Benefits, I guess.
I just, thank you for answering my question, Mr. Superintendent Hyatt, but I'm just very thankful that, you know, we this is one way that, you know, we just show appreciation to our staff that work so hard, all the way from our bus drivers, our cook, our librarians, our aides, our teachers, and I'm just so thankful that we have the means to do this. And, you know, I know they work so hard, and this is just one way, you know, that it'll be given to them before the holidays. So I think that's one thing that will please their heart. And thank you so much for allowing us to approve this and putting it on the agenda and finding the means within our budget.
If I could add one piece that's not on here, because I get this question the last couple of years we've done this, is that it also applies to SFE employees. Even though those employees have left us and are part of the SFE, we will still distribute the $500 to those former employees also, because they're still some quasi members of the district, I guess you could say. So I just wanted to add that in so that there's no questions about that.
Mr. Superintendent, you know, I just wanted to say how thankful I am that this is going to take place again and we're able to vote on this. You know, like we've always said, you know, our employees of Gallup McKinley County are what is needed in order to make sure that our children are educated in the proper manner that they deserve. But a big thanks to, of course, Giovanna, to making sure that our budget is in place and things are taken care of the way they are, to ensure that we do have this extra money. You know, I've been on the board for 9 years, and within this 9 years, you know, we were the first, when I first got on, and through the first 7 years, we were always running out of money, short on money. But now I see that, you know, with the collaboration, communication, everything that goes on within the district, you know, we're able to see extra money and extra funding because of the great work that takes place within the administration. So thank you.
With that, sir, I'd like to motion to approve.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Manuelito?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, just going to piggyback off of A, just thank you to the board for the support of the administration. There's things that we could not do without the board's support with respect to funding, as you are the oversight over those funds. And so I also want to thank you, along with the staff, that this money will go to. We're excited for this opportunity for them. this time of year. For item B, 6B, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this because more will come out of it because we're still kind of going through the process. But one of the parts of our strategic plan is improving graduation rates. And as we looked across the district and trying to find better ways in which we can create equity across the district also, coupled with making sure that when students are maybe not working out in the general education classroom environment, or we see students that are dropping out as we look at our graduation rates, we thought, actually been thinking about this for about a year, looking at a way in which we can start a school that provides an opportunity for those students that either are at risk of dropping out, who could benefit from an online, so virtual means basically an online school. Also, maybe to even attract students from around the state or even locally who are homeschooled that may need some sort of a level of service with respect to curriculum and online support so they can continue to work towards their graduation requirements. And also, at some point, we'd like to take this virtual school and use it to provide opportunities for the rural, not only in all parts of the district, but especially the rural parts of our district where I can't provide maybe a dual credit teacher for a specific subject area because we don't have the capacity, but this virtual school provide that opportunity to those students also. There will be a host of things that would be a part of an RFP that would go out for this, but we would want something that's all-encompassing where students are getting as rigorous and as appropriate education as possible that's available through an online platform. Where there would be a teacher on the other end, not just a computer program where they put in answers, but there's actually a physical person on the other end who is communicating with those students, even counseling. That counseling is happening virtually also. This is a major project. Actually, we created some teams the other day, and I'm the lead on this one. It's kind of a pet project, kind of like McKinley Academy was a kind of a pet project of mine. But I really feel by next year, if we do things right and we start now, or continue from where we're at right now, that we could put together a virtual school by next year and then continue to build upon that virtual skill to provide more opportunities for our students across McKinley County. And so I wanted your permission to continue. It's going to take a lot of work. I didn't want to go down this road if you felt this was a terrible idea, even though I can't give you every little last bit of information about it because we're still developing it. But the RFP process, the scope of work to get this out to people to bid on is pretty extensive. It's going to take a lot of time and energy, and I want to make sure that I have your support, the administration has your support, and your students have your support as we move forward with this idea. Any questions from the board?
I have a lot too, but I think that I'll wait until we start getting more into the process and planning of it. But I do want to say that I think that it's about time that we're going to reach out and try to help the students who are having some type of a problem, no matter what it is, to be able to attend school or just having trouble staying in school, that we're going to finally get something to reach out and help them to get their education.
If I could add on that, I've never felt good when you have a Seigai student who can't make it to Gallup Central, for example. Hasn't set well with me because that student doesn't have the same opportunity as somebody who lives in Gallup. And so providing this, I think, helps close that gap where we're not meeting those students' needs who are in the county area. So, sorry, I know you have more question.
I just like the fact that we're thinking outside the box and we're not continuing to do with status quo, and I think these are new realms that we need to explore. So I'm really interested in finding out more about it and continuing your report for it. But I think one of the things that might hinder us just is in the rural areas is internet services. So like having the community, what do we call it? The community centers or the community, is that what it's called? The community school centers?
Community centers.
Yeah, I think those would be great places, but how about the other places that don't have internet. So, I mean, I know those are all things that we need to work out, but I think that would be, at the schools, I don't know. I'm very interested, but I
answer that.
think taking those steps into those directions and would be really, interesting. So I think this is it's something that will happen. That's a good thing, but
Yeah, there's lots of unknowns
Yeah.
for you, I know. I'm just asking for permission to move forward. Obviously, you'll still approve any bid that comes in that gets rated. But to answer your question, I actually can answer that one. No bid will go out unless the vendor is able to provide all materials, all computers, and internet access for any student in our county. We've actually also had conversations with Sacred Wind. They want to partner potentially on this project to expand services to our rural areas for internet. And so it would require a commitment by whoever we work with that they have to provide an internet service in one form or another, whether it's satellite, through cell, or some other capacity that service is provided to students no matter where they live, not only in our county, but I'd like to expand this across the county.
so are you thinking of doing a pilot, a couple of pilot places, or are you thinking district-wide?
Statewide. It's ambitious. I think we can get something up and running by next year for not only our students, but even attract students outside of our county to provide this service for them. And then move towards what we call a blended model, where maybe students are going to school part-time in some situations and getting services through this blended kind of environment. In addition to that, even further, where students in schools that may not have, like I said, the capacity to take a course, that they're actually, even in the regular environment, they'll be able to take a course in addition to what they're taking so that they can have that same equity that other students have. So you may doubt me on this one, but I promise you that I'm fairly confident we can pull this off by next year, at least start full scale.
No, I think it's a great plan, and I say let's get started. I make a motion to approve.
Mr. Mitchell? Yes. Ms. Manuelito?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, you know the process to build a school is quite lengthy, and at the specific time where typically the board gets involved is when we're securing vendors to actually build the buildings and facility master plans and approving those items. I want to bring this item to you because we're kind of at a turning point with respect to Red Rock Elementary and Tohatchi High School in pursuing funds to do the feasibility study. And essentially the feasibility study is looking at the conditions of the buildings currently, what potentially that might look like as a new building, how many students are coming in or leaving with respect to the community. And so that process is coming on us quickly. And so I wanted to get your approval to continue to move forward because this would be building 2 schools at one time, potentially, which takes resources and time and management. And so obviously we're finishing up, or we will be finishing up through elementary hopefully within this year. And then moving on to hopefully these 2 schools. The feasibility study would take place in the, Mr. Bondi, would you say late winter, early spring? I think actually no, end of February, and then right after that is when we go out to bid for architects. Is that accurate? And I'll fight to get that sped up with the PSFA in New Mexico since they try to keep us under their thumb. So it'll take a little bit of time. We hopefully will be designing late spring, early summer, starting the design process if we can secure an architect by then, and then go through the process. I think this is a necessary thing for this community. And also for Gallup. Red Rock Elementary is the last elementary school to be rebuilt in the whole entire county. It is falling apart. It needs to be repaired, or it needs to be rebuilt as soon as possible. So leave that with you if you have any questions.
I just have one question, comment, and maybe the community of Tohatchi could help us with this one. I know we came here, it was Giovanna that brought up a question one time when we were here about the name of Tohatchi. I know that was a name that the Laganas couldn't pronounce, so they couldn't say Tohatchi in Navajo, which is, how you say it? Tohatchi, which is the proper name for Tohatchi. So if we're going to get a new school built, I would really like to use the proper name that this community uses instead of the Balagana version name. I think we owe that to the community of Tohatchi, that we continue to help our children also revitalize their language and say it properly for our elders that named this community years and years ago. So that would only be my comment, or maybe they want to keep it Tohatchi. I don't know. I'm just kind of the in-law here because my husband's married down there at Nashchidi. So I'm just an in-law. You don't have to listen to me. But I motion to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Joan, roll call, please.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Miss Manuelito,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw.
Yes. That concludes our business. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Do I hear a second?
Yes. Second.
Joan, roll call, please.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Miss Manuelito,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
7:47.
This meeting is concluded at 7:47.
7:47.